I've added this infographic on teaching adults, and so this is just something you can read. A lot of it is already what we spoke about in the previous slide or the previous video. The techniques, let's look at the techniques. The techniques are learner guided because as adults you can decide and determine what is important, what is relevant, what needs more focus. I mean, of course, problem solving and providing feedback is essential here because adults can really engage with feedback in a really meaningful way, and it really helps. That error analysis really helps to tweak the work going forward, to change the way you are operating to make it a more effective learning experience. In terms of materials, I love working with scenario type questions, especially with older learners or with adult learners, because the insight that has been developed over years, hopefully at this point the insight has been so well developed that it really has a huge impact on the learning process, and of course reflective activities as well, because we want to reflect, we want to look at where we are, where we need to be, what our strengths are, what our areas of challenge are, etc. The learning relies on experiences because the experiences the adults come with is quite rich. Everyone comes from a different background, a medical background, a corporate background, a teaching background, whatever the case is, and that all comes together to beautifully impact the learning process, not just for yourself as the individual, but as your complete student cohort as well. And then, of course, what you're learning needs to be relevant to your life or to your workspace. You're not just learning for the sake of, you know, retrieving facts and storing facts, but you're actually learning because you're going to be implementing it. And so, in terms of assessment for adults, assessment here really requires a lot more higher order thinking, a lot more focus on developing skills that are relevant for the career path or relevant for a learning process that leads you to different career paths. Learning is not just done to tick off boxes at the end of the day, so it's quite intentional, and it's a lot more autonomous when it comes to adult learning. We now move on to the humanist or humanistic approach, which emerged in the 1960s. And in terms of what it really focuses on, it's very person-centered. It believes in the ultimate good of individuals or people, that the ability to reach their potential is realistic. They are fully autonomous and independent, and we should consider the holistic being. We should be considerate of the way someone feels, the way that they are experiencing an environment, what their practical skills are, how they feel about themselves in terms of their self-esteem. Are they comfortable? Are they feeling as if they belong? Are they connected, etc.? So it's very holistic in its approach. Key features include learning being a personal act, that people are acting with intentions and values, and that the way the person feels affects their ability to learn. So if they're not in a good space, we first need to deal with how they're feeling, and then we can move on to learning. We cannot supersede the experience of the moment and of the time. In terms of the learner is viewed as having an affective or cognitive need, so they have a need to feel a certain way or a need to experience the world in a certain way, and they need to learn things that are suited to their ability and suited to their interest, importantly. Okay, and of course, in terms of the learner's ability to feel comfortable in the classroom, they should be able to say whatever they want, to speak their mind and not feel that there would be any type of reproach or consequences for whatever they've said. But of course, a big focus is on respect as well. The main proponents here, you may have heard of them, Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow. I'll talk about Maslow in the next slide quite a bit as well. The focus is on freedom, dignity, and the potential, as I said a little bit earlier. In terms of the educator should be someone that really sees everyone as an individual. They see the person, they connect with the person. This is very difficult in very large classrooms. It's not impossible. I I know it's definitely not impossible. It's really just about who the learner is, who the educator is as an individual. Are they someone who wants to connect with the individual so they really buy in to the humanistic approach? It's quite individual. Oftentimes, irrespective of theories, and this is now just my own feeling on the matter, educators will express and work in a way that shows their true feelings and their true perspectives on children and education. So a teacher that has a true and actual feeling around humanistic approach, you will see it in the way that they interact with their learners. They will want to get to know the children. They will want to be involved. They will want to consider the feelings of the child because that is who they are. And so that's also something that we need to also keep in mind when we're considering all of these theories. So the teacher will foster an environment that helps the students feel secure, safe, comfortable, and makes them feel like it is where they belong. I said we'll speak about Maslow a little bit, and so this pyramid is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what it proposes or purports to propose is that, okay, it actually does propose that you need to understand basic needs before you are able to move to levels of deeper understanding, of higher order thinking, and of self-improvement. So at the bottom or at the base of a triangle, you can see physiological needs. So those are the basic needs of every individual. And so Maslow presents or um, says we need to consider physiological needs first before we can even think of anything else. So things such as, of course, breathing, because we need to be breathing, but things like having food, having shelter, those are important. Being well rested, it's important for you to then build upon the next level. So it's almost like an iterative process and build on the foundation of physiological needs. We then need to feel safe. We need to have our health. We need to, and so think of health, think of learning in terms of our current situation, where health is not necessarily, granted to everybody. Employment not granted to everybody. Social stability. This is very important. So this, according to Maslow, will really affect a learner's ability to participate in the classroom and learning space because they don't feel secure on these two basic levels. Then he proposes that love and belonging is also quite important, to feel a sense of connection, to feel like there is family and support. So here, if you think about bullying, both in the safety and security and love and belonging levels here, bullying can definitely have a great impact on a child's ability to learn and a child's ability to feel as if they are um, safe in their learning space. Then self-esteem also affected by things like bullying and feeling of connectedness. And then we look at self-actualization. So Maslow says you have to have all of these four basic levels first set before you can think of self-actualization. And self-actualization really focuses on, things around improving who you are, going to the next level, reaching your potential, being more focused and intentional about the things that you do, looking internally, those types of things which are actually a luxury, because you're not fighting for food, you're not fighting to find a place to sleep tonight, you're not scared of the bully rather. You are feeling that you are stable, therefore you can self-actualize, go to the next level, do some inner work, do things like yoga, go and travel, go and increase your knowledge base. Give yourself more opportunities. But those basic levels first have to be set and sorted before you can get to that level, according to Maslow. So you'd see Maslow's hierarchy of needs in corporate environments, in teaching, in psychology. It is all over because it does speak to the human need for basics before we can, do anything else. There's an emphasis on psychological growth, free will, and personal awareness. And personal awareness links quite closely to self-actualization. And I apologize that this is written down twice. It probably, I missed that. Okay, so in terms of techniques, the techniques here are facilitated peer groups, and so people talking to each other about their perspectives and thoughts and ideas on topics. Exploratory conversations, again, reflecting on your own thoughts, your own experiences, and your own ideas around concepts. And then further to that, also the student is able to pursue their own interests. So the learning is led by the student and led by the curiosity and led by the interest. In terms of assessment and the way that we would do checks for learning would be around experiments, observation sheets, discussion groups, tasks, and again reflections. And reflections, as you can see, come a lot in the more student-led processes. And then learning is a focus on developing self-actualized people. So people who are aware of who they are and aware of what they need, what the world needs, and how to autonomously get there in a respectful and well-meaning way. And finally, 21st century skills. As I said, I added this. I have seen it being spoken about as a learning theory. But 21st century skills are, as it says, a set of skills necessary for you as an individual or learner to really succeed in life today. So these set of skills are not necessarily as in former years where you had to work towards a type of trade. So if you think about before the industrial revolution, let me not get into history, that's going to be too specific. So for today, for example, there's a lot more focus on things like technology and IT. So you see this great move to everyone doing IT and at the time CAT because they were preparing for a specific type of work environment. In former years, people moved from agriculture, for example, to factory work. And so I love history, so I'll use this as examples. I don't want to get carried away, but young ladies, for example, were taught how to use sewing machines because the factory worker that was available at the time would be using sewing machines. So what 21st century skills talks about is not preparing a learner for a specific type of trade or career, but rather preparing them for the world today. So it's a set of, it's non-exhaustive, so it goes on and on. The ones that I found here are what I found in one infographic. But these skills, the lists vary and they are very long and they're quite intense. But they are what we would call iterative skills, which are skills that can be used to build upon or skills that are transferable in different situations. So it doesn't necessarily mean I'm preparing you for the medical field, but rather I'm instituting a growth mindset. I'm preparing you for the world. I'm preparing you for different situations. So the skill that you use, for example, curiosity, can be used in any field, in any learning environment, in any work environment. So these are really the skills that we refer to as 21st century skills. It's about being open to learning different settings and being prepared for different settings. So in terms of the definition, so it's, as I said, it's what's necessary for a student to be successful in at school and post school. So not necessarily just at university or high school, but also in your work environment. And even if you're not working, even if you decide to be at home um, to be a housewife or a house husband, whatever the case is, they are these set of skills that help you to navigate the world in an effective and successful way. So specific traits, habits, knowledge, and I seem to have lost the word there, but essentially habits, traits, knowledge, etc., that would allow you to be successful. So the key features are developing what we call core competencies, basics or basic competencies that will allow you to be successful in various settings. The skills are transferable in that you can again use them in different settings. The learner is a global citizen, so they are not bound to one place or one space. And it's not about thinking outside the box or thinking inside the box, but it's about actually recreating the box, well, breaking down, the boundaries, creating a new narrative, things that are completely unexpected that you didn't think was possible. That's really what the focus is. The learner is not bound by curriculum because if you think about it, learners can go onto the internet and learn anything at any time. They can go onto social media and be exposed to a realm of possibilities that we didn't even consider. So the curriculum is really just more a guiding principle for educators and a starting or jump point for learners because learners today can learn anything that interests them and they just basically do what they have to do at school because they have to do it. So teachers really need to be, very aware and motivate students to indulge in self-learning as much as possible. I haven't really found one proponent or theorist in terms of 21st century skills. I think a lot of people contribute to them. In terms of the focus, it's preparing the learner for the world, it's creating or fostering a growth mindset, and equipping learners to enjoy a high quality of life. So that's quite interesting and quite a good point. So the educator, you need to weave the skills into learning opportunities in the classroom space, to encourage them to develop these core competencies or skills by creating scenarios in terms of the assessments in the learning material and so on that actually encourages the use or the development rather of these skills that we'll discuss in the next slide. I'm sorry, this is quite tiny, but if you would like to see these infographics or if you would like this presentation without the video, of course, you're welcome to ask me for it. So here we have a list of some of these 21st century skills. So we have foundational literacies, competencies, character qualities, things like curiosity, initiative, persistence. All of this you can see is necessary in different situations, not necessarily just for learning or for high school or for the intermediate phase. It's really useful in different situations and different scenarios. And you can see over here these skills are explained. Again, if you need to see it a bit more clearly, you're welcome to ask me for the PowerPoint. But essentially, this is something you can find on the internet as well. I just wanted to show you what these skills look like. Then under 21st century skills, a lot of focus on flipped classrooms. And so flipped classrooms are where learners go out and find the knowledge and bring it back to the classroom as opposed to the teacher being the holder and presenter of all information and all knowledge. So it is and that is where the word flipped classroom comes from, as opposed rather than the teacher bringing in the information, the learner is doing so. So they're doing their own research, self-investigation, which excites learners quite a bit. Another interesting part of 21st century learning skills, which I personally quite like, is no homework. And the no homework is not necessarily just about giving children less to do, but it actually gives them the focus and time to develop other skills, and it motivates students. So the expectation is that they are being challenged in different ways, developing different skills, and that schoolwork is done at school, and learning of the world or learning about other interesting um, areas of interest is done at home or after school hours. That's a debate, and there are pros and cons, of course, but yeah, you need to decide on what side of this you stand, homework or no. So that's really the end of. I'm going to move on very quickly to the next slide while I talk so that you can just have a look at the bigger picture. Like I said, learning theories, there are many learning theories. There are so many nuances to it. There is so much to learn, so many questions to ask. It informs theory in a very important way. It informs assessment in a very important way. The way we assess is determined by the learning theory, as you could see when I went through the slideshow. When we are choosing a learning theory, it impacts the way we assess our learners. Do we consider learners to be self-led? Do we consider to be facilitators of learning? Do we consider learning to come only from the teacher? All of this impacts the way we assess. And so this is why we're starting with learning theories. Learning theories create the base upon which you will build the type of assessment and the type of learner expectations that you have. So at the end of the day, you need to decide where you want to place yourself. I personally believe in quite an eclectic approach in most things in life, is in that I take what I feel is helpful or what is important. I don't get bogged down by one theorist's view or one type of learning theory. If you do, that is completely your choice. But for me personally, I find that I take from various spaces which I think is important. I believe, for example, learning the times table by heart is a good skill, but I don't necessarily believe that repetition is the way that learning needs to be completely done. For example, I like the cognitivist approach to learning, where you employ examples and make learning meaningful. I love that in constructivism, that we construct our own knowledge based on experiences, which I truly believe, with the experiences we come with. I believe in humanistic approach, in that we need to be respectful of people's views, thoughts, and opinions. 21st century skills, I think, are vital to survive in the world today. So for me, it's quite an eclectic mishmash of what works and what doesn't work, but you need to know yourself as a teacher and individual to take what works best. Otherwise, it can be very confusing. So you'll develop it over time, and it's okay for you to take your time to develop it, but just know that it is okay to feel that you like parts of something and not know the other. And so that is really the important information I feel that you need to work on, or you need to know in terms of assessment, or an assessment learning or assessment in relation to learning theories. As I said, there are many more, but I've created these summaries for you so that you can use it as a template to do further summaries for yourself. And in future, if you would like to share information about learning theories, please do so on the student forum. And we end there. Thank you for watching this video, and you can use this video to help you with the quiz and the work that follows.